What about breakfast?
You've already had it.
We've had one, yes. What about second breakfast?
The developers have been adding more little Easter eggs and more mysteries for us to explore in Stellaris. Have you noticed there is now a second body of stars not connected to the main galaxy? A second set of stars like the L cluster out there to be found and explored. Their secrets to be revealed. Just like the L cluster, this set of stars has its own unique story and disturbing history. Let's dive in now and find out more about Aspharel, Ophala, and the Chari Noi. You may have noticed another group of stars not connected to the main body of the galaxy. This group is somewhat like the L cluster, but is available all game long right from the very start. It comprises 8 stars all connected together, and beyond that, one further star only accessible via jump drive. The only way in or out of this little cluster is via the Ithom's gate system. This system is rather strange. At the edge of it, there is a wormhole. This is the regular method of entry unless you manage to get jump drives to jump in here. And instead of a star, there is a black hole. But that's not all. There are also 3 orbital habitats, which are entirely empty if you can get there early enough, ready and waiting in orbit around this black hole. Beyond the gateway, you will find a civilization called the Chosen. The Chosen are a rather interesting society. If you manage to discover wormhole technology first and fly through the wormhole to meet them in their cluster of stars, you'll see this message. The Chosen are deeply confused that we have managed to breach the wormhole. But how? Their best scientists have been working on it for years without success. There must be some kind of mistake. This must be a test. We are not to be trusted, and now the Chosen will cleanse their stars of our kind. Alternatively, if we don't discover wormhole technology and fly through to meet the Chosen in their space, but instead if they fly through and meet us in the wider galaxy, we receive a very different message. For too long have we been trapped behind this wormhole, but behold, finally, we have breached the restrictions placed upon us by our celestial heritage. Now, at last, we know we are worthy. The rest of the galaxy is ours to claim. Do not resist. It will be better in the long run that way. The Chosen civilization comprises a species known as the Chari Noi. Their exact visage is different from galaxy to galaxy, but some things remain constant. First, they are a fanatic purifier and will stop at nothing to purge the rest of the galaxy, as they believe that is their divine right. They are also an exalted priesthood. And if you're enjoying this video, please choose that like button. But what about that extra system beyond the Chosen's reach? What on earth do we find there? The Ophala system contains a couple of interesting things. First is a dig site, the abandoned observation post dig site. And then there is the abandoned observation post itself. But what were they observing? Well, down below is a Gaia world on Ophala Prime. This Gaia world incidentally contains the Chari Noi species, a number of them living in the Bronze Age or possibly later, depending on when you come across this planet. By going through this abandoned observation post above Ophala Prime, we can find out much more about the history of the Chosen civilization. And it may also shed some light on the origins of the pre-FTL Chari Noi civilization on the planet below. This abandoned observation post above Ophala Prime appears to have been repurposed shortly before it was abandoned. Though there is evidence of equipment to surveil the inhabitants of the planet below, most of it seems to be dedicated to a museum of Chari Noi history. Curiously, for such a warlike species, subjects relating to violence seem to have been avoided, and exhibits appear to show various rituals of peace and fertility. A series of data crystals have been left in the control room, and it is evident that we were supposed to find them here. We'll also get a series of minor artifacts by completing this stage of the dig site. Translating the first crystal, we find ethnographic records. It is prefaced with the words, "This is the record of the Charinoi people, left behind by the prophetess Ithacarios, so that those who might find it may forgive us our sins." What follows is a collection of historical, philosophical, and artistic works as may have been created by a fairly standard, if somewhat belligerent, late industrial society. Our linguists have sent it back to our homeworld for further analysis. Then we find out about the turning point. Now I shall recount where it all went wrong, where we first fell to the sin of arrogance, declares Ithacarios. The second crystal recounts how the Charinoi gradually uncovered the mysteries of spaceflight, seemingly about 100 years before our own people. They then found two beautiful planets in their own system, and concluded that those had been bequeathed to them by the gods as their birthright, which they were now claiming. In horrified tones, Ithacarios recounts the darker side to these early exploits. Nascent civilizations on their new colonies had not willingly yielded their homes. Beaten into submission, they were enslaved and eventually dwindled, falling to diseases the Charinoi did not care to cure. Our linguists then get hard to work at translating the third and final data crystal. We also find a cache of yet more minor artifacts here. The last crystal is titled the Traitor's Gambit and leaves us with a difficult choice. Eventually, we exhausted the confines of the space we had been bequeathed. We knew of the existence of the wormhole, but it defied our study. Our realm was so bountiful, so full of beauty, that it was not hard to convince ourselves that we were the chosen, that the wormhole was a test, and once we were worthy, it would be our holy purpose to spread our kind across the galaxy. The prophetess was once chief amongst those who seek to fulfill this duty. When inspiration came to her, when she realized she held the key to the opening of the wormhole, she prayed for days at the shrine of her ancestors. And eventually, revelation. We were not worthy. If we went beyond the wormhole, we would find only pain. Aspharel would be scoured out of punishment for the crimes we had committed. She resolved to destroy her research and seek a different path. It was hard to find those who she could trust. If they were discovered, they would surely have longed for a quick death. Though the prophetess grows more convinced than ever that they were right. Though I am more convinced than ever that we were right, we would have been seen as apostates. Eventually, we launched a daring plan. Under the guise of making a fool attempt to fly the wormhole blind, we built an arc ship to sail into the unknown, towards a distant star. Many years we travelled through empty space until we came to our destination. Now, we wish nothing more than to be left in peace, to live virtuous lives so that we may prove that not all Charinoi are evil. Apologizing profusely for any harm done to us by her brethren, Ithacarios mentions her attempts at erecting an impenetrable shield around Ophala Prime, so that her people would never again be tempted to seek the stars. She failed, but our researchers have been able to work out where she went wrong. We could now erect the shield if we so desire, and this leaves us with but two choices. Either we can issue a special project and erect a shield around this primitive civilization of regressed Charinoi, or we can do with this world as we please. Doing so gains us some additional unity. If we decide to erect this shield, we will forever cut off this Charinoi civilization from the rest of the galaxy. Doomed to a slow and depressing end, the Charinoi on this world of Aphala Prime will have no help ever again. Thanks to the efforts of our researchers, the shield Ithacarios attempted to erect over Aphala Prime has been completed. Her Charinoi descendants can now find peace. This will grant us the redemption of the Charinoi modifier, meaning we'll get plus 10% monthly unity and 50% additional output from all observation stations. Our completion of Ithacarios' shield has allowed the Charinoi, or at least some of them, to find redemption. I think this is possibly the most disturbing end of all for the Charinoi people. However, this is not the only end. If we enlighten the Charinoi people on this Gaia world, if we bring it into our civilization, before we complete the abandoned observation post dig site, we receive a third option. The third option is so much for that. This will grant us 15% militarist ethics attraction and a very modest but still good plus 5% ship's weapon damage. I think possibly this is the most economic end to this storyline that you can have. There is of course still the matter of the Chosen, and you will have to deal with this fanatic purifier before they come for the rest of the galaxy. If you enjoyed this video on Stellaris lore, and you'd like to find out more about the Ultima Vigilis system and a possible fourth crisis, click the video on screen now.